So, I am from Sweden and I live in Lapland, and that's where I was when this happened to me. One day I decided to go in the woods with a rifle. There were no neighbors around me at all for some 12 kilometers or so. I have heard some tales around this area when I was little, stuff told by the Same, ancient legends and that kind of thing. Apparently, this weird thing they were talking about makes blood-howling screams in the middle of the night. When they are heard the next day, dead reindeers and stuff are all found torn up. I've heard the scream once. It does not sound like anything else in the forest. It's just a screeching howl. It was a long time ago that I even thought about that shit, so I completely forgot. Anyways, I was in the woods at least 38 kilometers away from the closest settlement. There was nobody there except for me and my two rifles, a suppressed 308 and an over-under shotgun. I set up camp in the forest on a big flat rock. I didn't think that the rock might crack from fire. Well, anyway, who cares? The first night is windy and rainy. I hear noises, but it's probably the wind. I had hung up some fresh fish in the trees to keep away from the bears. The next morning, all of my fish is just gone. All of that fish was hung up around 3 meters in the air, and I can't find any trace of it whatsoever. I guess it was probably the wind. The steel wire that I hung the fish in is still on the tree. If this is some tall-ass bear, I swear to Christ. I go to take a piss by some trees. Then I go back to camp. Everything else is in perfect working order. At least the bear didn't take my food. I decide it's time to go and pick blueberries. I go out with my rifle on my back and that blueberry holder thing in hand. I can see loads of deer walking around on the higa. Higa is where they've cut down trees for new ones to grow. It just means cutting in Swedish. I leave the blueberry holder thing on the ground. I follow the deer onto the patch. I'm standing on top of a big rock formation. I can see deer as far as like 150 meters away. It's a far shot, but it's a good side profile. I steady my rifle. Bam. The deer walks for around 10 meters and then just drops dead. I go back to leave my blueberries at camp. The blueberry holder thing is tipped over. There are blueberries spilled all over the ground. What the hell is this bear doing? Is this thing screwing with me? Why did it mess with my berries? I really love blueberries, so now I'm really pissed off. I gather the blueberries and leave at camp. I'm thinking that if this bear screws with me again, I will kill it. Nobody messes with my blueberries. I go back to the deer after some time. The deer has lost its ass and both back legs. What the hell is going on? I clean up the deer and carry the front half of the deer back to camp. When I come back to camp, everything is untouched. I get a fire going. The fire is only for cooking and for protection against insects. In northern Sweden, we have midnight sun, so I can see pretty far away. I cook the deer. This shit is tasty, goddamn. I eat blueberries for dessert. Well, what's left of them anyway. Everything tastes better in the wild, I'm not sure why. I go to sleep and hang up the meat in the tree. I wake up in the middle of the night. I smell a really weird smell. It smells like a fart. I think it's me. I think maybe I have to take a shit from all the blueberries I ate. I grab my knife. I go away from the camp to an open forest section. I could see all of the fjell. The fjell is like an open area in between mountains. It's damn good view for a shit. Then I hear it. I hear this horrible noise. That screech I told you about earlier. I heard that screech and it was so damn loud. My blood turns to ice. I shit. Thankfully not in my pants, 'cause they're already down. I see something far away. It looks like one of the things from a show I used to watch called Moomin. Nobody lives here. Nobody should be around here. What the hell is this thing? It looks at me, I think. It felt like it at least. I make a howling sound back to scare this thing off. This thing goes sonic across the fjell. Am I high? It moves so quickly it was hard to even track with my eyes. It was more like a blur. I go back to my tent. I sleep with my loaded shotgun right next to me. I wake up the next morning. The thing did not come to my camp and grab my meat this time. I think I scared it away. But still, I feel really watched. Well, I won't back down and I can't exactly just run home. I will kill this thing, or it will kill me. I spot some scratch marks on a nearby tree. Deers usually do this with their horns. The only difference is that these marks are around 2.5 meters high. What the hell? I set up alarms with old army food cans and some fishing wire and double-aught buckshot pellets in them. I piss all over the place to mark my territory. Hopefully, predators will smell it and keep away. I carve Heimdall runes into some trees around my camp. I mark clearly that this is my place. If this thing still enters after all of that, it is here to kill me. I go and pick some more blueberries. Moomin monster or not, I absolutely love them. I see no trace of the thing whatsoever. I'm proud of myself. I load my 308 with zombie killer green tip meme ammo. Well, I wish I knew what that was. It looks badass, and I feel like a badass with it. I put ash on my suppressor. I read that you should do that against cryptids in the woods. I don't know. Okay, I'm finally ready. I cook my food. Suddenly I hear nothing. It's as if the entire forest went from ambient sounds, little insects chirping, birds singing, yada yada, bits of wind, only to become a complete vacuum with no sound whatsoever, all at once. I got really spooked. I'd only heard this kind of 100% silence in the forest once before. I'm thinking, okay, if this is the end, I will take this thing with me. I crawl underneath a pine tree. I've got my 308 ready and loaded. My shotgun is also within hand's reach. I have a hatchet and a knife on me. Let's go. I see a moose running out of the denser parts of the woods. It's just plowing through. It runs straight through my spook alarm. The clanging of the alarm breaks the silence really badly. It was incredibly loud compared to the previous silence. You know what's actually strange? When the moose was running by, just before it triggered the alarm, I couldn't hear it at all. Like, these things are heavy, and I could not hear its footsteps, and it was going at quite a pace. So surely I should have heard something, especially things being trampled in the woods. All I can smell in the air is wet hair for some reason, and the smell of death. I start to pray for anything, for God, for Thor's hammer to smite this awful thing. I will take anything at this point. I hear that screech once again. It's not far away at all. I see the pine tops moving. They are actively shaking. What is this thing? Is it Bigfoot? I see it again. It's too dark in the thick forest to make out any features. It looks like a big gray thing. It has red spots all over it. It looks like blood, not spots. What the actual fuck? I bite down on some pine to stop myself from screaming or breathing too loudly. I see it actually inspect my rune carving. It knows it's not welcome, I hope. It goes to my camp. I aim at its head, I guess. I fire. I hear the clear sound of an impact into something soft and squishy. I work the bolt. I fire again. It stumbles around a little bit and roars. I just realized, this thing is a troll. They are real. Grandma always told me about mountain trolls when I was small, and I thought she was just making it up, but this thing is shaped exactly like one. This thing is absolutely massive. It looks straight at me. It has these bloodshot, yellowish eyes. It has this big round nose. It's an actual troll. It roars at me. It knows where I am. I think it's time to do or die, time to man up. I grab my shotgun, and this thing does a sonic roll towards me, like when it curls up in a ball. I instinctively shoot the thing. Blam blam. It stumbles around a little bit more. I grab a hatchet out of my belt. I roar at it with everything I have. I don't know. I was just kind of in a weird place at this point. I was kind of on autopilot, not really thinking. It was like I just reverted to primal instincts, I guess. The thing roars back at me. I'm standing at this point around 10 meters away from this huge thing. It's 3 meters tall at least. I roar at the thing again. I stand my ground. I take one step forward. It backs the hell out of my territory. Fast as hell, it runs back in the direction from where it came. I just stand there. What the actual hell? I see blood on the blueberry leaves. I pick it up and take it with me in a wallet. I sleep like a baby. I wake up the next morning. Birds are playing again. The thing is gone for now. I pack up my shit and start hiking home. When I get home, I put the blueberry leaves with evidence in a plastic Ziploc bag. I travel to a university in my city. I give them the DNA for analysis. They say they gave it to a university in Uppsala. I get a visit from government men. I have no idea what agency. They tell me it's best if no one knows anything about what has happened. Nothing happened. I get it. I get the idea. I didn't want to get hurt or anything. My friend from university calls me. He got a hold of results somehow. DNA matches with no known animal. He tells me that he knows what I saw. This all happened in 2009. I will never forget the smell or the sound, but at least I fought what I still think to this day is a mountain troll. Scariest thing I've ever done. A couple of years ago, my buddy, Will, introduced me to this dude named Tim. Tim was part of this local gun club that owned and operated a small haunted attraction on the outskirts of town. Now, being a fan of horror, I was very excited when he offered to have us volunteer as scarers. The only requirement was that we had to bring our own costumes and show up at 5 p.m. every single night on the weekends throughout October. The layout of the place was pretty impressive. I made a small map of the area, and I will go over its general layout. In section 1, you have the parking lot, the massive wall, the gun club, and the ticket booth. The wall was made from foam and some leftover lumber, making it look like something from Wrong Turn or Silent Hill. Section 2 was a small carnival maze with several buses and tents decorating a large open field. The maze began by funneling you through a serpentine path of corridors until releasing you out into the carnival itself. Each bus and tent had a scarer or an entertainer with a stage. There were carnival games, animal cages, wagons, etc. Hell, with a little bit more work, it could have been passed off as an actual set for American Horror Story. Section 3 was the forest entrance. The forest entrance had a small building that was for storage, as well as some fencing. The fencing was set up mostly how you would set up a horse pen, and it was only there to keep guests from getting to the storage building. Next to it, there was a small dirt path, illuminated by light bulb that was strung up in the trees and stakes with caution tape. Following this path, you eventually reached Section 4. Section 4 was dubbed the town, since it reminded most of us of the village in Resident Evil 4. The town consisted of 3 houses that were used for paintball, a large bonfire in the center, an overturned school bus that you had to crawl through, and a large, boarded wall. The houses were decorated with lots of animatronics and prop corpses. Section 5 was where we were stationed. This section's path was roped off and led you deeper into the woods. There was little light back there, except for a single light bulb dangling from the porch of a boarded up cabin. The cabin was as close to a replica of the cabin from the Evil Dead as you could really get. Guests would go through it, and then they would continue down another dirt path to a clearing and onto Section 6. Section 6 had a large area that was tetanus central. It was a maze made from shitty rustic cars, metal sheet fencing, and chain link. We called it the junkyard. Getting through it and the 3 dudes with chainsaws, you reached a small wooden fence with a swing door that led out to the parking lot. So, now that you have the entire layout, I will continue with the story. As I said, Will and I were stationed in the cabin in the deep part of the woods. It was pretty sweet having our own spot. That was until Tim started asking us to prowl. Prowling is basically Tim wanting us to go from the ticket booth, walk the whole path, turning off every light and electronic, then going to Section 6, locking the fence door, then heading back through the trail with flashlights and locking the door by the ticket booth. Apparently, there had been thefts in the past, and instead of hiring a security guard, he would make us do it. Now, if you think haunted attractions or scream parks are scary, imagine them with no lights or music playing. No person behind a corner waiting to get you, or chainsaws buzzing in the distance. Just the dark and the sounds of the wind and trees creaking. Shit made me so anxious. I was praying one of the animatronics would come on just so I could relax afterwards. On a Saturday evening, we had just finished scaring some teens when Tim came over the loudspeakers. All monsters to the front, prowlers, begin your hunt. As he finished, he let out a deep and low laugh, and me and Will looked underneath the couch for our flashlights. I'm like, damn, is that it already? You would think since it's so close to Halloween, we will be busy. Will was just mindlessly checking his phone. Yeah, maybe they're waiting till the week off. I don't know, bro. Then he told me he was going to put out the bonfire. He asked me if I wanted to go and lock the fence. I said sure. We separated, and I headed for the junkyard. It was a normal night. I walked up to the fence. I locked it and turned off the shack lights. I unplugged the werewolf. Then I started down the trail. When I got to the cabin, I turned off the lights and locked the back porch up. I flipped off the breaker for the porch and the inside lights. I watched the fan stop spinning, and I stepped outside, locking the front. I think the time was around 4 in the morning when I finally had all of the lights off and met back up with Will in the middle of section 3. He was putting out what was left of the bonfire. That was when Will noticed something. Dude, why did you leave the light on? Huh? I asked, looking behind us down the hill. At the bottom of the hill was the cabin through the trees. I could see the lights on in the inside, with the porch light off. I groaned, mostly because I did not want to walk in the dark-ass woods by myself. Yeah, I'll turn it off. You check the houses? Yeah, all locked up. I'm going to head up the trail and flip the breaker for the carnival. And then he headed off, up the trail, towards section 1. Reluctantly, I headed back for the cabin. I remember walking back and thinking, how the hell have I left a light on and locked the door? Surely I would have noticed the light peeking through the cracks of the door. My boots crunched occasionally, thanks to the leaves on the ground, as I got closer to the cabin. I think that's what gave me away, because when I got halfway there, the light flipped off, and I immediately stopped. Hey, who the fuck is that? Is what I yelled, shining my flashlight at the porch. I darted the light up to the windows and the door, but I did not see anyone. Somebody had to be in there though, because the only way to turn off those lights was with the breaker. I'm a big dude, but however, in that instant, my mind was racing. If someone was in there, I have to get them and hold them. What if there's more than one? What if they have a gun? After a couple of seconds, I looked around and picked up a stick that was laying off the path. I stood silently, holding that stick up when I heard it. Tap, 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 tap. Suddenly, the light came on the porch. I stood there frozen, not sure what to do. Tap, tap, pause, tap, tap, tap. I started to call out for Will, and as I did, the porch light came off. I should have got the hell out of there, but I didn't. Instead, I took a sharp breath and took off for the door. I took my keys and started unlocking it. I was going to beat this dude's ass for scaring me. 3 more taps. I opened up the door and stood in the doorway. The light from my flashlight illuminated the room, casting shadows on the walls. The breaker box panel door was partly open. I shined it back and forth, darting the light into the bathroom and kitchen. No one was there. Lowering my guard, I listened. I could only hear my own breathing and the trees outside. I took a few steps inside, and then I walked over to the panel. My boots were making this really heavy thumping sound on the hardwood floor. It was really loud. As I reached out to flip the switch, I felt something brush past my leg, and I screamed, dropping the flashlight to the ground, and I was swinging the stick down. I heard the sound of claws scraping across the ground, like it was a dog walking on linoleum tile, and it echoed past me, along with this high-pitched cry that I could hear. I caught a glimpse of a clawed feline leg and a bushy tail as it slammed into the front door and darted out into the woods. From that same direction, I heard a yelp coming from Will. I picked up the flashlight and shined it on him. He was shining his flashlight out into the woods. I was a bit relieved to see him back, but I was glad that our would-be intruder was just a kiddie. Dude, what the hell was that? He asked, as I let out a short laugh. It's just a cat, dude. I think the lights are messed up. We gotta tell Tim, man. Dude, that was not a cat. What do you mean? I asked. He just kept staring at the woods with his light and finally muttered something. Cats don't look like a fucking sloth, dude. What? I was just really perplexed. What the hell do you mean they don't look like a sloth? He told me that what he saw was not a cat, that it had huge, pointed ears like a bobcat, a flat face, and long claws on its front paws. He told me it was much bigger than a cat, much wider and fatter, like it had a lot of strength. He said the most disturbing part was the damn eyes, like people eyes. They did not look like the eyes of a cat. He said that thing had human eyeballs. I shined the flashlight back into the cabin, and I could see that it messed up the flooring really badly. Whatever kind of claws it had, they were strong to do that. Bits of wood ripped up, and bits of sawdust where it had dug in and scraped it. We decided to call it a night. I did not see much of what it was. My friend Will saw way more than I did. He was looking into it after the fact, and said it might have been a talapo or something like that. I think it was just a really messed up raccoon. Anyway, that's about it. You can be the judge from here. I got a story. I kind of suck at writing stories in an interesting way, but I'll give it a go. This story actually happened in a desert though, and not in the woods. So, when this happened to me, I was a corpsman, attached to a Marine infantry unit on an exercise in Yuma, Arizona, which mostly comprised of air assault and live fire. The company, which was approximately 200 dudes, is biovac near a platoon attack range located up in the hills of the Yuma proving grounds. It had been about 2 hours after the range went cold, and everyone was preparing to bed down. It was a pretty uneventful night, which is good, because that means I haven't had to take anyone to the hospital. I was just chilling, listening to Morty Robbins, because why not when you're in the desert? It's about midnight now, and everyone is very much asleep. But in the distance, over the hills, I hear a thumping sound, one with a pattern and regularity. It was faint, almost like a heartbeat, I would say. The sound is getting slowly louder and closer. I look over to my right and see the doctor I work for, who is listening to a podcast. I'm like, "Hey, sir, do you hear that too?" He nods, and his expression on his face went from surprise to confused. As time passes by, the sound gets clearer, and you can begin to hear chanting, which is aggressive in nature. In the desert, sound seems to travel farther, so it was pretty difficult to tell how far away the sound was at this point. At this point, I'm considering waking everyone up, and I've fashioned a spear with my survival knife and a support pole for camouflage netting, and have gone through some effort to mentally prepare myself for what is coming over the hill. Then, as it seems that the party of tribal chants is going to crest the hill, it is gone without a trace. It just stops, and it's dead silent once again. It was seriously the strangest thing I've ever experienced, and I definitely was not the only one who heard it. I tried finding one of the guys who was on watch around that time, but I was never able to figure out who was on that night. Also, earlier that night, I had killed a rattlesnake, so I was somewhat scared I angered a spirit or something. Okay, so I do have a story about a weird friend, but that weird friend was my ex. So I was the only Asian kid at my school in Midwestern America. I'm basically a novelty. I hang out every morning with my friends in the school quad. Across the quad was this girl. She was the goth grunge type, always wearing purple and black with stripes. I will call her C. She is a friend of a friend of a friend. One day, I arrived to school early. I'm the first one at our usual spot. I'm sitting there, reading, with my earphones on, when suddenly someone sits behind me and tears one of my earphones out of my ear. It's her. She appeared out of nowhere, and she is listening to my music from the earphone that she took. She's sitting awfully close by to me. I am not interested in her. Anyway, she starts hanging out with the group. No one talks to her, nor she to anyone. She's just there. She just sits there and watches and listens. A mutual friend tells me that she likes me. I do not want to offend her, so I decide to start talking to her. She invites me over to her place after school. I arrive at 4 p.m. She lives in the more disagreeable part of town. I meet her mom. She has advanced aging from drug use. Things get worse. Her mom comes up to me and says, "So, you must be C's boyfriend." Boyfriend? What? I play along. Yeah, I know C. She hangs out with us every lunchtime. Her mom works at a BK. She brings us some food that she scored. Again, I don't want to offend, so I eat what is given to me out of courtesy. I stay there doing homework. Well, trying to do homework. I am absolutely uncomfortable being there. Her mom leaves for work. I offer to give her a ride, just as an excuse to leave, but I am declined. I am staying home alone with C, hoping my damn best that she does not initiate any sexual behavior. She brings over a bowl of cut fruit and tea. I end up eating it. I realize that I shouldn't have. I pass out. I remember telling myself that it'll only be for a few minutes that I stay there. I was gonna leave shortly after her mom left. I wake up to her over me. I ask what time it is. It's 9 p.m. My left arm feels completely numb. I look over, and as I look at it, I try to lift it up, but I can't. It's just stuck there on the spot. I see bloody gauze wraps and sterile wipes all over the floor. I think the blood was her, so I ask her if she is okay. She says she's fine. I look down at my other arm. There is fucking blood everywhere. What the fuck? She says to me, "I thought you'd like what I did to your arm." I'm like, "No, what the hell are you talking about?" It turns out that this absolute creep raided her mom's medicine cabinet for sedatives and carved up my arm in some artsy way. Apparently she likes to draw and sketch, but onto people. Anyway, she ends up carving 13 crosses into my arm. I am at this point utterly pissed and scared because she has a damn scalpel, the kind used for dissecting stuff in school. I grab my shit real fast, and without thinking, I grab some of the bloody bandages. I don't know, maybe as proof of what she did. I end up forgetting my jacket there. I never asked her why, but after some thinking, it dawned on me that my last name has 13 letters and begins with the 13th letter. Fuck me for getting involved, I guess. I get home. I have to hide my wounds for a month by wearing long sleeves. For the time in between, this weirdo is still hanging out across the quad, just staring at me, and she's wearing my jacket. I don't even want to ask for it back. I probably wouldn't even get it, but also, I just didn't want to interact with her ever again. But yeah, she's just sitting there, wearing my jacket, and she stares at me like the whole time. I do not return her phone calls or messages from mutual friends. My friends know the truth. I had to lie to my parents just so this does not escalate. One day I arrived to our usual spot. The place is scattered with purple swastikas. Most of them are poorly drawn or entirely wrong. We suspect exactly who it is, but we don't know why she would do that. We do not hang out there anymore because we don't want the blame for them. The wrong city. Late at night, I decided to go for a walk. I would go to the convenience store, buy a bag of chips and a soft drink, and go back home. It was a long walk, but I enjoyed it. Unfortunately, once I got to my destination, something was, wrong. None of my cards would work. As the clerk reset his terminal, I checked the website from my bank, and there was a message telling me that everything is down. I showed it to the clerk. We apologized to each other, and I went back on my way. However, I decided I would take a different, more roundabout route back home. The air felt brisk on my skin, and I did not mind not getting my snack. The snack was just an excuse. The walk was the true goal. However, as I walked back, things got even stranger. I found that I was in a completely alien environment. The more I progressed, the more I was surrounded by tall, dark spires in perfect rows. The sky adopted a strange glow which I could not explain. It still definitely looked like a city. There were even cars parked in the streets and street signs, but it was, wrong. My surroundings had gone from natural and urban to stark and monolithic. Though it appeared designed for humans, it did not appear designed by humans. I could feel an overbearing presence above me, like I had intruded somewhere forbidden. I hurried on my way, on what should be the way home. The road took strange turns, twisting in abnormal and apparently random ways. I would come across roads to nowhere. Strange beams flashed across the sky. And then I was back in the sane world, back on the street which would lead me back home. I turned around, and the weird world I had just traversed was gone. Gone, but for some pictures that I took.